Okay, right. Let's take you back to the Marshalltown area in Johannesburg. Mngambi, I understand the ministers arrived.
During the post-cabinet briefing, the numbers are just staggering for a country, for a people. I'm informed now, in the morning we announced 64 people who have perished in the fire. Now I'm told the number is 73 that has perished. And I'm informed that it is a hijacked building. They had partitioned inside with cardboards and everything. That's why the fire that caught up was there could not be much, even when it's at the hour that it took place. And we have discouraged, as a country, as a government, the occupation of buildings, because we do not know as yet the causes of the fire. But if a building is hijacked, it was a heritage site, and the city has been doing its part to try to remove the people so that they could have decent accommodation, but they were continuously being litigated. And I think a situation like this takes us into a difficult conversation as a country. Do we have to fight to block government to do its work? If we have to remove people to save their lives, why can't we work together with the social partners instead of holding government to court to prevent the removal of people in occupying this? This incident could have been prevented if the city of Johannesburg was allowed and not litigated to remove these people so that the building could be maintained.
Let me challenge you there, Minister, for a moment, because the country has laws. You can't possibly say that NGOs are standing in the way of you trying to save people's lives by taking them out of buildings that are inhabitable. Surely that is a cop-out, Minister.
It is not a cop-out. It's what we are confronted with. You can ask the technical team of the city is going to give you a briefing later in this afternoon. You can ask them how many times they've gone to court on this building, in particular. It's a heritage site. That's what we are informed. And to try to remove the people from this building. And it's not the only building. You can see around you, the city rejuvenation program is starting to take off. But we cannot continue, and we continue to plead, like I've said in the morning when we're talking about illegal connections of electricity. We continue to plead with our people, do not do illegal connections of electricity. Do not occupy unsafe buildings. It's us protecting yourself. We don't want to come at this point, but what is important for now is our ability as government collectively from the city, the province and nationally to make sure that those who have perished can be properly identified because their bodies have been burnt, to those who are injured that they can be taken care of, and to those who don't have accommodation because where they were residing has gone up in flames, that they can be moved to temporary accommodation. And that is going to be done, and the announcement is going to be done. That's the first preoccupation. But we need to have this conversation about our ability to protect ourselves and not to go into habitable buildings. I must concede, the city has been slow in moving to deal with the condemned buildings. You know, there are a number of incidences that have happened in Johannesburg. But where we are, if you just turn Xoli and your camera show and you have a camera shot, you'll see that there are improvements. The temporary job site is the ABSA building. They've put through a 1 billion rand investment there to rejuvenate the city, to make sure that the buildings can be habitable.
Final question from my side, Minister. This incident, is it going to be an incident that galvanizes government into action about buildings that are either abandoned or those that have indeed been hijacked? Because the longer this is allowed, Minister, we're probably going to see worse than this. In fact, so many people dying, and among them young children. What do we do as a country? Do we declare a day of national mourning? How do you properly honor and observe the lives that have been lost here?
The president is currently in Gqeberha. When this incident started to be reported, he was already there. So he is going to come and make the necessary pronouncements. But we are going to receive the reports from the city and the province in terms of the work that is being done, in terms of how do we mourn this, but not only mourn this, but how do we galvanize. It's not a government situation. It's a whole of community, a whole of society situation that we must be confronted with and deal with. To say as a society, do we want to see people perish? Because if we don't work together, if we do politicking, if we do grandstanding, if we do all sorts of things that do not help to make sure that our people collectively can be then accommodated in places where they are safe, in places where there are proper and true services that are rendered, and where they can pay for those services, because there's also an obligation for them to pay for those services and not agree to live in squalor. And because it's also self-respect and self-preservation. It's in the morning when I was giving the cabinet briefing, we spoke about the 67 Pakistanis who were turned back at OR Tambo. In that number, there were children who didn't have any parents linked up to those, and the numbers of children who have perished here, it's heart-wrenching. And I speak as a mother, I know the pain. I can't imagine me waking up to have lost my child in a fire like this. I can't imagine the families. Earlier when I was traveling here on the news, I was hearing the cry of a mother who says, my child was here, I haven't seen them, I haven't come. I can just imagine. But that's the conversation we need to have as a country, to say, what do we do together? How do we work together? Both the non-governmental sector, the private sector, the community in general, and government in its totality, not one sphere over the other, and all political parties. How do we work together to build and rebuild South Africa? And I've shown you incidences. If you just do a camera shot. Yeah. If you do a camera shot, you see that the springs of redevelopment is coming through. I'm informed that the students are being housed here with security, and their accommodation is paid, and the buildings have been rehabilitated. And so we need to make sure that these ones that are condemned, they do not have people. And it means the communities that reside around, they must be able to alert government to say, when such things happen, there's an occupation you remove before your eviction laws start to be complicated, so that you don't have an incident like this. And the city and the municipalities, because they're the first ones who are responsible for this, they must be responsive enough to act to make sure the evictions happen on time, and then the government in its totality must work. And Minister Kubai, I'm sure, and MEC Maile, I'm informed, he was here earlier, and they will come back and announce what are the measures they're going to do to support the city in dealing with the human settlement issues. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister Khumbudzo Ntshavheni. I'm going to let you go through as she heads off to inspect the scene, and arriving here at this hour, the minister in the presidency. And lots of conversations that need to be had, Mpostole, about what needs to happen now. And that question I asked the minister right towards the end: does this incident become the one that galvanizes government into action about genuinely dealing with buildings that are abandoned, and most importantly those that are hijacked, where people are being exploited simply because they need a shelter over their heads? So you've heard the minister also intimating that the president is in the Eastern Cape, and he's on his way back. In fact, he wants a report on what has happened here, and national government is going to have to pronounce on what happens from here on in terms of government dealing with this particular matter that has happened here, because this is a priority right now, but a bigger conversation surely has got to be had about how do you deal with this situation. Important.
Very well, absolutely. Mngambi giving us the latest there, getting reaction from Minister Khumbudzo Ntshavheni.